Delegates, ladies and gentlemen, great Iccobites! I congratulate Iccoba for the successful holding of our National Convention, BENIN 2021. I'm greatly humbled to have been called upon not only to be a part of this historic assembly, but to enjoy the privilege of saying a few words before our collective assessment of the theme of this convention. I must congratulate the Iccoba national leadership for the choice of theme for this convention, which represents the essence of our gathering together. That theme is intended to guide our deliberations and decision-making throughout this August Assembly. I find the theme, sustaining the gains of the past, most profound and apt at this stage in the life of our alma mater, ICC, our dear nation, Nigeria, and indeed, this contemporary world we find ourselves in. Undoubtedly, we are living in times suffused in frustration-indulged cynicism, frustration-induced cynicism, despair, and a sense of hopelessness on the part of very many, if not the majority of our fellow citizens. The theme chosen, on which I have been called to share views, connotes positivism. It calls for an examination of our past, a recognition that this past has buried in it lessons and gains, which, in view of the present challenges, call for identification, appreciation, application, and sustenance. I shall try to be as brief as possible, touching, as it were, a few basic thematic areas which I believe capture the essence of our intellectual journey today. After all, the ICC tradition from which we were molded emphasizes the virtue of respect for elders. I see so many of my seniors here present today, those we looked up to as role models in the heydays of yesteryears, before whom I dare not put myself in a position to be reminded that, quote, 365 days is not a joke. Not to talk about the ancients, whose exploits we only heard and read about. This category is ably represented today by the chairman of this occasion. A most distinguished and highly revered senior citizen, an epitome of dedication to duty, with an enviable record of professionalism. Past and present, change and sameness, old and new. In this discourse on sustaining lessons or gains from the past, I hope to briefly consider the inherent linkages between the past and the present as a continuing phenomenon. In other words, to appreciate how without the past, there cannot be the present. How the past becomes the present, and how with passage of time, the present invariably will become the past. I hope to expound on this intriguing concept of everything must change and how really nothing is new. Everything remains the same, essentially and qualitatively. Given that there are indeed some unshakable precepts that bind the old and the new. The relationship being dialectical represents a thesis, antithesis, and then a synthesis. It only makes sense that those precepts which worked or failed to work in the past are recognized to guide those of us who find ourselves in the present in contending with the challenges of today. On the immutability of change, the Italians will say, se vogliamo che tutto rimanga come bisogna che tutto cambi. The literal translation of this is, if we want everything to remain as it is necessary that everything must change. It appears contradictory is this dialectics between change and sameness. Distinguished colleagues, if that is too far away for your comfort, the Benin or Edo people would say, this means, for those that need the translation, the search for a new road ends up along the old road. This is to be seen in the relationship between the steam engine and the petrol engine. Fuel injectors and sensors only serve as promoters of greater efficiency. After all, scientific knowledge is cumulative. Artificial intelligence and robotics cannot be divorced from existing know-how. So what is new? The world of parables. The subject of parables is one that, at a personal level, I find most engaging. Parables embody principles and precepts crystallized from and mirror collective experience over hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. No, they don't come into existence overnight. Weeks, months, not even years or decades. I am not so sure that new parables have come into existence in recent times. Perhaps that is why parables are said to endure for long periods. In fact, in Benin, they never fail. That is why we say, Itaido Idevoa, which means Edo parables endure for all times. That is a very audacious statement, but it is true. Itan ọ̀rá fi máa do edigwe agbẹ̀rẹ̀ onímọ̀. It means it is a mark of sophistication that Edo is renowned for, to speak in parables. Among the parables relevant to our discourse today is that which says, those who fail to learn from the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them. That one is universal. Yes, there are mistakes of the past. We cannot allow ourselves to romanticize about the past, even when we acknowledge that here, and indeed in the good old days, there were good old days, but learning from the mistakes of the past as the saying goes, become a gain. To this we shall return as we propose to bring in other parables relevant to this discussion. When we talk about the past, how far back? As Africans, perhaps the most decisive experience we have had, the consequences of which painfully still linger, is our encounter with the European white man. While it is true that there was the trans-Saharan slave trade before the arrival of the Europeans, which had its delictous consequences, it certainly was not as pervasive in scale or sustained over a very long period of time. The consequences of the massive kidnapping, enslavement of millions of African people, and shipment to distant lands in North, Central, and South America in chains to till the land without pay over a period of 400 years is an unforgettable experience representing the most pervasive violation of human rights known to history. Digesting the lessons derivable from this sordid experience continues to be a challenge till date. If we as Africans are ever going to be able to say never again, it remains a matter of conjecture what the impact of a sustained destabilization and depopulation was on the social and economic development of Africa. Our ancestors were compelled to work for free for centuries in, among others, tobacco and sugarcane plantations by those who made humongous profits from their toil and used the massive propaganda at their disposal to create an international market into which colonized peoples were sucked for their unhealthy products. Tobacco, sugar. One can only imagine the opportunity cost in the sense of what was lost and what would have been the gains had the Africans been left alone. The Venerable Sage Kwame Nkrumah Sagefo teaches us that neo-colonialism is the highest stage of imperialism, whereby what greeted the anti-colonial struggles of Africans and other colonized peoples was not a qualitative uprooting of the exploitative economic structures planted by the slave dealers and colonialists, which continue to haunt us till date. To what extent can we say that the lessons derivable from this aspect of our past have been learned, imbibed, and factored into policy formulation in the management of public affairs in our country, Nigeria, of today? We must go further back, the African past. Contrary to notions bandied about by racial or racist intellectuals and historians, it was not the relatively recent contact with the Europeans that brought Africa and Africans to the limelight of history. After all, the Egyptian civilization was Africans. But even closer home is the now well-documented history of the autochthonous statecraft and social organization of society of the Benin Kingdom, spanning a period of over 2,500 years, as compared with the European experience and contact of only about 600 years ago. What continues to marvel historians till date is the highly sophisticated social and economic organization that the guild system embodied at the height of the Benin Kingdom, under which workmen were organized into specialties like brass and bronze casters, igweo, ironsmiths, who specialized in the manufacture of agricultural tools and war implements, UNEME. Herdsmen, yes, herdsmen, Iriebila. Carpenters, Ibesama. Singers, Isiwa. Drummers, Igbema. The commitment to excellence was a command. The way it was put at that time, I went, Krudo win an e woman, and I say, I mean, an archive boy, nail your aid. It was a trade practice. Our people were taught to keep to the highest standard of fellow professionals, not that of the novice, as they used to say. If a novice sees a piece of artwork, oh, how beautiful. It's a fellow professional that will say, hey, wait a minute. Look at the size of the ears. They are disproportionate. The nose is slightly... So, there was that commitment to excellence. And the maxim was designed to bring out that excellence in all that we did. In the same sense, we also said, no fear her or by a. If you do a shoddy job, there are consequences that will follow. These guilds occupied quarters in the kingdom capital and other places and enjoyed special attention, special recognition and funding by the state. In fact, the UNEME people, the ironsmiths, enjoyed such special favorable treatment, particularly by Obaegwari. And it was said that this was what was responsible for the exploits that that regime was accorded. These days, the relationship between the government and the academic staff union is one where they never see eye to eye. This was part of an intricate system on which rested the foundation of an integrated whole that was self-sufficient. And I've mentioned that this was autochthonous. It wasn't as if we were borrowing from some other places. Autochthonous, it developed from within. It was integrated to self-sufficient. Distinguished delegates, this makes us proud inheritors of a legacy and heritage, which at once was a blessing to African people and humanity as a whole. It put a lie to the notions about Africans being savages in need of civilization. Thus, little surprise that the Europeans were so astounded when they came face to face for the first time with the products of the handiwork of this era, the cleanliness and the layout of our cities. There were certain defining maxims. It bears emphasis that in this era, there was nothing like unemployment, as the social norm derided idleness and labeled the lazy as uboiwe, meaning those who refuse to produce but yet wish to eat. Generally, there were no idle and disorderly persons. Everybody was engaged. There was nothing like homelessness, as home construction for every member of the society was a collective responsibility. Healthcare was accessible to all on the basis of need and not ability to pay. Incidentally, the concept of the right to fair hearing was enshrined with widely taught precepts like Aizeto Heneruwa, meaning you cannot shave a man's head in his absence. You cannot be a judge in your own cause. Meaning one must hear the other side. So whether in the management of the home or society as a whole, if the daddy of the house hears from maybe one of the wives and wants to jump to conclusion, somebody will raise an objection. All that person needed to say, it was so powerful that the head of the house will correct himself. So, okay, let me hear from you too. The right to privacy was also a cherished right when all members of the society were taught Amaturo, which mandated that every visitor to any house must wait to be let in by knocking at the door. That's our concept of the right to privacy. You can't bounce on people's home. Accountability of the head of government. I'll just give a few instances. It is a matter of record that Ogiso Odo, the last of the first dynasty, was banished from the throne for maladministration. It's documented. And especially for committing the offense of Kirikuva, for ordering the execution of a pregnant woman. Aguano. To demonstrate the sanctity of life, there was a general injunction forbidding the killing of an egg-laying crab. Captured in the statement, if you are a fisherman, you catch a crab that is egg-laying, by law, by custom, you are enjoined to let it go. Because we want the eggs to mature and it would bear fruits and become more bountiful. From that was derived the norm that a pregnant animal, whether a goat or a cow, must not be slaughtered for any purpose. We notice that it's pregnant. The law says you must leave that. It was therefore a crime of the highest order for the king, for whatever reason, to have a pregnant woman executed. The people rose up and Ogiso would pay very dearly for it. Second instance is that of Obaohe, who reigned at about 1334, many years before the white man came. Obaohe was stoned to death in this very Benin for ordering the killing of the Iyase who caught him in his immodesty. Obaohe approved, was trying to hide him from the people, but the Iyase caught him. In his commitment to trying to still hide that immodesty, he got into bigger problems by killing the Iyase. Yes, up till today, Igwe is right around the corner. By the time the chiefs, maybe after a while, they will take it to the left hand and say, look, where is the Iyase? The Oba, having been subdued by that experience, he also say, I don't know. But you will notice that the stance adopted by the Oba at that time is one of being subdued by the power of the people. It's a reenactment of what happened about 900 years ago. The maxim was, Ena Begoba, Idia Begioe, Orani Yowere. But if he does, Your Excellency is the same way, the same enthusiasm with which the king is applauded, that he is derided when he falls below standards. Talking about accountability of the leadership to the followership, as have been attained by our people 900 years ago. Details about the encounter between Obaavoramen 1888 and the British suggest that the Oba himself at a point was prepared to grant audience to the white man in violation of the customary law that forbade that, but for the insistence of the chiefs who sought to uphold the law. This is what explains Obaavoramen's song of lamentation that on his way to Calabar, he had a sad song, and that was part of it. I didn't order the killing of the white man, for which I'm paying the price now. They mentioned Abakawaye, Obayuwana, and others who did. But those gentlemen were upholding the law. Under a circumstance where not even the king can violate the law. The above few examples, of course there are many more, confirm that at all times, sovereignty resided with the people, and that everybody was subject to the law, both the leadership and the followership. In fact, the embodiment of this sacred principle can be located in the saying that Oba or Edo Oba, which means the king is the people and the people are king. It is this symbiosis, this mutual respect that anchored the progress that was attained in that era. We'll just say a few things about a few more maxims. There was a settled liberalism in matters of mutual coexistence and mutual respect amongst the component parts of the kingdom. This was captured in the maxim, it recognized the equality of all languages and the entitlement of persons to speak their languages. This is to be contrasted with the colonial experience of the suppression of indigenous culture and language, derisively termed vernacular. We know the relationship between Edo and Eka, but then the official policy was, please let them enjoy their cultural rights, because it's a fundamental human right. There was strict accountability demanded of public office holders and all persons in positions of authority. This was captured in the maxim, which means the wearer of a bead must not fall below standards and community expectations. Critical followership was encouraged by the maxim, By this, every citizen has a duty to correct the deviant in society. We are talking about pillars of social organization. Freedom of speech was jealously guarded. The maxim was, which literally means nothing could be better than speaking for oneself. You say that would knock lawyers out of business? No, even in the law, you can represent yourself. You know. Injustice and double standard was forbidden. The maxim was Edo Ebu Kemewe Edo Egowu, which means Edo judges fairly, Edo judges fairly, and abhors double standards. Anybody that felt a sense of injustice, all he needed to say was Edo Ebu Ekua. The answer from the assembly will be no. So what are you doing now? That will bring about self-correction. Persons with physical disabilities were by law the responsibility of the state. Hence, Uke, children with limb impairment were usually sent to the palace of the Oba of Benin to be catered for and taught skills to become useful contributors to society. This is not confirmed, but I hear that somebody lately in our palace said, look, this place is not, it's not a repository of this kind of characters. It's yet to be confirmed, but they need to know that the respect that the people accorded the leadership was on account of these responsibilities that they bore on behalf of the people. That's why you take yam, they don't farm, we feed them. Decision making was collective and popular participation in governance was guaranteed. The popularized concept was located in the maxim, which means no problem is without solution when the matter is collectively deliberated upon. I don't know, I try not to appear political, but we are hearing now that people are demolishing libraries for a supermarket. Even Central Hospital. We want to move Central Hospital to create a motor park. These are collective issues. To what extent have these issues been subjected to collective consideration in a way that makes it known that all other options have been considered and this is the best? At the federal level, the president attended a summit not too long ago. He was indirectly negotiating for trillions of dollars in loans. He said that was to address the infrastructural deficit, building of roads, schools, hospitals, and all of that. The question we have to ask, to what extent have the Nigerian people been consulted? How did you arrive at that figure? Has our experience these past 60-odd years not confirmed that the budget-making process is one whereby people just create business opportunities for themselves?
That is true.
Yeah.
What has happened to popular participation in formulation of policies and programs? We are faced once again with the scepter of a debt trap. These days, both at the national and the federal levels, huge amounts of debts are approved by the legislature without a scrutiny of the purpose for the loans and the payment terms. So once Mr. President or Mr. Governor corners the President of Senate and at the state level, the Speaker, it's done. Yet generations to come bound. That could not have happened in the system of governance that we had in place. I was telling a friend the other day, because these days, everything is done by the contract system. Contract. If Obaobola had embarked on the construction of moats on the contract basis, it would have become an abandoned project. But where there was commonality of viewpoints between the followership and the leadership, and the followership appreciated the initiative proposed by the leadership, and they saw what was good in it, of course. They said the only mound that was sighted from the moon, other than the Chinese walls, was the BENIN moat. At the time when we didn't have excavators, not only were the moats dug manually, the debris was brought to the surface in sufficient quantity and height to be sighted from the moon. Distinguished delegates, it bears pointing out that there was also no such thing as religious intolerance or antagonism between worshippers of different deities, from Olokun to Ogun, Eziza, Orunmila, Isango, and Osun, Ake. That same philosophy of Ozekarazeka, to each his own. There were no religious wars or attempts to forcefully convert people of different beliefs. Let me not forget this. We were also environmentalists. We have mentioned how we appreciated the sanctity of life, even for animals. We extended that even to trees. Iccoba, you see a plant that will grow into a big tree. You have a duty to protect it. Young trees are to be protected. And this, in fact, became the euphemism that forbade statutory rape. Don't forget the experience of open, no your hand, no not yet wide. In his days of sojourn around Botubu and Yegegosa and all of that, he was resting in the bush one night. His account was that he was hearing a tree groan. When he approached the tree, he saw that that tree was worm infested. He had been taught to be sensitive, not only to the plight of fellow citizens, even trees. He started to remove the worms from the trees. Well, this is what they say. By the time he finished and the tree enjoyed respite, hey, who is this person that has been so kind that brought me this relief? The great powers that NY is reputed to have had are traceable to the blessing that he received from the tree. In the Benin Kingdom, before the advent of the white man, migration of people was already an established phenomenon. This is the reason why state policy was which means a well-behaved settler blends with the indigenous. So we have to wonder whether those seeking to impose their hegemony and religious viewpoints by force of arms can be characterized as well-behaved settlers whose state policy during the Benin Kingdom era directed should be accommodated. And you want to be accommodated? or you'll be no years a motor. Mr. Chairman, sir, my leaders, these are just a few more. There are just a few more. The anchor and legal basis on which society was organized in the Benin Kingdom before the advent of the white man. It was a system in which every citizen has a stake and will recognize benefits for themselves. And so we are prepared to defend that system with all that they had at their disposal. Patriotism was canvassed by the maxim, Oya, Oya Yasin Yewoman. It's all right. Special protection was accorded to the patriot. Whatever marks you see on my face today come from the beatings I received from soldiers and policemen. In Benin Kingdom, special protection was accorded the patriot, who must not suffer any ill treatment for being patriotic. Forbidden. Critics and activists were recognized as embodying a change that was possible. And so they enjoyed special protection by that maxim, high border level. Our people took pride in their attainments. Hence the saying, Ebo Mare, affirming that our clothing industry had already developed before the advent of the white man. We're not covering ourselves in leaves. Today, imported used clothing, known as Bendan Boutique, covers the nakedness of so many. Today, well, gentlemen, I have, by way of conclusion, I ask, from all we have said, Mr. Chairman, sir, are there lessons to learn from our past?
A lot.
I have bothered to be as detailed as I have been in view of the situation we find ourselves in Nigeria today, where for the majority of Nigerians, irrespective of ethnicity and state of origin, hunger, nakedness, homelessness, ignorance, and death from preventable diseases is the order of the day. psychiatric patients, stark naked, roam our streets. And 2 weeks ago, I saw a fully grown woman, stark naked, at Uvorame Square, having her bath with pure water. I don't know whether anybody here saw her. People go past, even Commissioner for Health, they will go past and no, don't worry, she's a psychiatric patient. So, is she not in need of attention? But that's not an isolated incident. I once wrote a letter to the psychiatric hospital in Benin. I said, no, there's this young lady between Uniben, Wasota Junction and all of that. Stark naked. I met the medical director, psychiatric hospital, and then the local government. It's only Bemudia that tried to intervene by sending clothes to her. But somebody who is mentally sick. The medical director, psychiatric hospital was saying, well, no special provisions have been made for picking psychiatric patients from the streets. Destitutes. If pensioners, and we have many here, since 2012, what every civil servant looks forward to is gratuity. That's probably about when they have enough money to say they want to start the period. Since 2012, our people have not been getting their gratuity. Many of them are in the full stage of being diabetics. They need medication on a daily basis. But even if you are talking about those ones, what about the farmer who can no longer farm in the village? All the children are gone. Where is the provision for social security? These are people who must eat every day. If she's a widow, she makes the error of coming from the village to town. She can't afford to pay her rent. She's sitting under the tree near a primary school and all the children gather around and say, this must be how a witch looks like. Many of those women in front of Holy Cross, they are widows. Unemployment, criminality, and deviant behavior is rife. Tribalism and ethnic chauvinism has descended to a low ebb never before seen in the history of our country. Nation building in this era seems like a task that is doomed to failure. Many have given up, and separatism is gaining ascendancy. In my concluding remarks, I choose to ask whether the BENIN model does not hold the key to a brighter future, not only for Nigeria, but for African people as a whole, and perhaps for humanity. Is this not a good case of Agazode Babde, Udenete, Ayagwalo? Does our way forward not lie in a critical scrutiny of our past? I leave you all to ponder on this. It remains for me, sir, to recognize that ingrained in the informal educational system of old were eternal values not expected to change despite passage of time, on which social interaction within families and society as a whole was anchored. Consistently upheld were virtues like industry, that is hard work, and character, that is honesty, humility, empathy, politeness, and polish. These were prominent aspects of learning at Immaculate Conception College, Benin City, which it is my hope remains till date. I recall that our teachers at ICC planted in our hearts the noble spirit of integrity and dignity. We were told over and over again that it is demeaning for an ICC student to beg for anything. We don't beg. I beg, sir, was not to be heard from our mouths. I know that ICC has contributed great minds in its over 7 decades of existence to Nigeria's manpower development. I believe the time has come for Iccoba to come up with a system of recognition of the most outstanding of members of Iccoba, those who are still alive and those who may have joined the ancestors, a hall of fame of a sort, the sole purpose of which is to inspire excellence within the ranks of those in the process of being baked by ICC and those who have found themselves in the ranks of Iccoba. To serve is an honor, and our dear country Nigeria is in dire need of those with the expertise and the commitment to draw lessons and therefore gains from our past for the benefit of all humanity in Nigeria, to the glory of God. To sustain the gains of the past, we must study and appreciate our past. I hope I have thrown a little light on this. I thank you for the opportunity.
Standing ovation to the lecturer. Standing ovation, please. Thank you very much. I know you can do more than this. Let's do it better. It's not easy. Thank you, thank you. Now please sit down.